What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, Cardinal Red, and we back for some more of that Ali Land boxing talk, people. And today we talking Manny Pacquiao versus Canelo Alvarez. Boxing's last super fight. Alright, y'all. We're about 10 hours, 15 hours after the Broner fight. You know, Pacquiao got the big victory. Broner, you know, he kind of fought a fight scared a little bit, if you want to say that word, or slightly intimidated. You know, he was trying to use a what I call a Philly roll, which is a stance to where you're kind of in a Philly shell and a shoulder roll, and he was just using it wrong. You know, his hands were down here where his hands should have been up here, and Pacquiao was just hooking over his top guard because it was down so low. And it was just an easy fight for Pacquiao. He was a lot faster than Broner. He was a lot stronger than Broner. And his stamina was, you could tell, way higher than Broner's is. Now, with that fight being concluded, the question on everybody's mind now is Pacquiao going to get the Mayweather rematch? Or is Mayweather ducking? Is there something else going on with Mayweather as far as alleged substance abuse, steroids, if you want to call it, PEDs, whatever you want to call it, that he's having a hard time getting out of his system? Is that a reason? Is that one of the reasons he can't fight Pacquiao? Is the Errol Spence Pacquiao fight going to happen? Or is the Pacquiao Crawford fight or Pacquiao Garcia fight? And those are all, to me, great fights. Those are all fights that would be fan-friendly. They would be battles. They would be great for Pacquiao's legacy to say he beat one of those names at 40 years old. But to me, none of those fights now, even the Lomachenko fight, none of those fights now make any sense for one reason. Well, for two reasons, I'll put it that way. Number one being, Pacquiao is making these young guys look really ordinary and making their skill sets look very average in boxing. And then for a 40-year-old boxer, ultra talented boxer, to be making these guys look super normal is it's kind of strange to me. And it takes me back to what Lomachenko said. Not exactly what he said. He said that he doesn't want to make a name off of beating the old guy. I think they don't want to lose their name off of a loss to an old guy, what they consider an old guy. And I think that in a lot of ways, that's true. They shouldn't want to lose their star power because they lost to Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is much more talented than a lot of these fighters. Even at 40 years old, Manny Pacquiao is a lot more skilled than these fighters at 40 years old. And those guys really shouldn't have to lose their up-and-coming star power to fight a guy like Manny Pacquiao, because they probably wouldn't win. Number two, I would say that it doesn't make sense because there's no money in those fights. I think people now are going to see that Pacquiao can dominate these young guys because his skill set is just so much higher than these young guys. His stamina is so much higher. His power, his speed, they're just so much higher. And then he makes these guys just look so normal that nobody's really going to want to watch it and pay for it. With all of that said, and I could still say another mouthful about that whole situation, especially surrounding the Lomachenko fight and what he said. You know, it's not that you don't want to beat an old guy. It's that there's a real chance that this old guy is going to beat you and beat you decisively the same way he did Adrien Broner. And with all of that being said, man, to me the only fight now that makes sense is Canelo Alvarez. It's the biggest name left in boxing. It's the biggest draw left in boxing, and it's the biggest pile of money, win or lose, out there for Pacquiao to take on Canelo. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say there's no way that Pacquiao could beat Canelo, and I'm not talking about these guys fighting at 160 pounds. I'm talking about maybe 154-pound catch weight, and there would have to be no rehydration clause, because there's no way that Canelo can be allowed to balloon back up to 170 pounds, 175 pounds on fight night. There would have to be some type of clause to where there's a max out at 160 pounds, because I think Pacquiao can make 155 pounds and still be solid, you know, and still be strong and fast. But I think that would be the cutoff, and Canelo would be allowed to rehydrate back to 160. Anything past that, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to let Pacquiao fight somebody who's that big. Even though he probably would still beat him at 170 pounds off of speed, but there's more of a chance of Canelo catching him with something powerful at 100, you know, if he was able to rehydrate back up to 170 pounds. Because he can actually balloon back up that big. Whereas Pacquiao might be able to max out at 160, 165, you know, if he's really pushing the fluids. But I don't think that's something that they would want to do, because it's going to slow his speed down. But at 154 pounds with 160 pound max out rehydration, I think that fight works. I think the fight is huge. I think the fight is fan friendly. I think there's a lot of money surrounding that. I think the Floyd Mayweather fight was building up a lot of velocity until we saw what we saw in this AB fight. Mayweather can't beat Pacquiao at this point. If you watch that Tyson fight, his skill set is steadily going down. His weight is starting to be an issue. He didn't look very fit in the Tyson fight. He looked like Damon Wayans from the boxing movie he did, where his stomach was all puzzed out. He looked horrible, man. And there's no way that version of Floyd Mayweather can even compete with Manny Pacquiao for 12. This version of Manny Pacquiao for 12 rounds. So I'm kind of throwing that fight out the window. If it happens, it happens. But I'm not even interested in it no more. I see Pacquiao still has a lot left in the tank. And if, with that being the case, I would rather see him fight a real competition and do it for a high dollar something. I'm willing to pay $100 for Manny Pacquiao versus Canelo Alvarez. If I had the $100 at the time, I would be willing to pay that. I just feel like it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to fight Errol Spence, because he's not going to gain anything off of that win. You know, just like the Adrien Broner win. There's really nothing for him to gain to fight these young guys, which is the problem. You fight Errol Spence and you win, and then what? Now you have, you know, people are going to say, well, he can fight yada 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 next. And I don't want to see him keep continuing. I want to see him go out on a very high level against very high level competition, win or lose, and let that be his last fight. Because the last thing I want is for one of these younger guys to actually be the guy who makes their career off Manny Pacquiao's name. You know, I would rather it be a guy like Canelo to beat Pacquiao if it comes down to that. But I think Pacquiao can actually beat him at 154 pounds. But I just don't want to see these young guys keep trying to piggyback out for Pacquiao's name. You know, it's going to continue to be a piggyback game. It's going to be, well, okay, he fought Broner. Let's see if he can beat Porter. Okay, he fought Porter, beat him. Let's see if he can beat Spence. Okay, he fought Spence, beat him. Let's see if he can beat my... You know, why keep picking back into him off of these young guys when it's obviously he's just more talented than them? And I don't see a way a lot of these guys can beat him. And I can name off about 4 guys that I know at this point can't beat him. And Porter can't beat him, seeing what I saw last night. Thurman can't beat him, seeing what I saw last night. Garcia can't beat him, seeing what I saw last night. Lomachenko can't beat him, seeing what I saw last night. The only two names that would be competition for Pacquiao at this point would be Crawford and Spence. But I don't see that fight making much sense because I still think Pacquiao is much more talented than Crawford, and I think the Spence fight is more intriguing because he's stronger than Pacquiao. But I still see Pacquiao beating him by decision. The only fight I see being a battle and a real competition because of Canelo being so seasoned is Canelo Alvarez, man. And I just want to see this fight now. I don't want to see any Pacquiao fight anybody else but Canelo Alvarez. I really think that should be his retirement fight. At first, I did think the Mayweather fight should be his retirement fight, but I'm backing off of that. I think the Canelo fight's worth more fanfare, better legacy defining, and better legacy ending fight for Pacquiao. Let me know what y'all think down below, man. Subscribe, please. Hit the like button for me. Need any boxing gear, hit the description box. If you know any homeless people, man, it's cold outside that time of year. You got 1 minute and some leftovers, man, you know, provide those people 1 minute of your life. You never know, man. It might turn somebody's whole life around. If you ain't got nothing else to tell them about, man, just talk about boxing. Ali Land Boxing Talk, Cardinal Red, we out of here.